12 days after being missing, following an Israeli shelling of her family car, the body of 6-year-old Hind Rajab has been found along with the bodies of 5 of her family members. Rajab was fleeing the city in a car with her aunt, uncle and 3 cousins when they came under fire from Israeli tanks. Her plea for someone to rescue her ended when her phone line was cut amid the sound of heavy gunfire.
This was the moment 6-year-old Hind Rajab begged for rescue. She was trapped by Israeli fire. On Saturday, relatives found her body along with 5 of her family members, days after her call for help. They were still in a car in Gaza's Tel Al-Hawa suburb. That's according to the official Palestinian Wafa news agency. The bodies of 2 ambulance workers who had gone to save Hind were also found. The agency accused Israel of deliberately targeting the ambulance. And a spokesperson said the ambulance team had told them occupation forces aimed a laser beam at them. Nebel Farsak.
3 ساعات وإحنا على التليفون مع هند وهي بتترجى طواقمنا تعالوا خذوني تعالوا خذوني.
For 3 hours we were on the phone with Hind and she was begging our crew, come take me, come take me.
تم الانتظار إلى
Unfortunately, we were not able to get to the girl directly because the area had Israeli occupation vehicles in it. We waited until we coordinated and were granted the green light. The Red Crescent crew went to the location after coordination with the Israeli occupation. Unfortunately, the occupation intentionally targeted the crews of the Red Crescent, despite prior coordination.
The plight of Hind underlined the impossible conditions for civilians in the face of Israel's 4-month assault on Gaza. The war began on October the 7th when Hamas fighters attacked Israel, killing 1,200 people and seizing 253 hostages, according to Israeli tallies. Israel's military has killed more than 28,000 people, according to Gaza health authorities. Israel says it takes steps to avoid civilian casualties.
Dr. Hassan Al-Hassan is a senior fellow for Middle East policy at the International Institute for Strategic Studies and is now joining us live from Bahrain. Welcome to WION The World is One, Dr. Hassan.
Thank you very much.
What do you think of Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's plan or strategy to target or even launch an offensive in Rafah?
Well, the outcomes of that plan are, as we've heard from UN agencies and humanitarian and other relief international agencies and allies and partners of Israel as well, have warned that this plan, the strategy, this assault on Rafah, which now, as your report mentioned earlier, houses over 1.5 million Palestinians who are sheltering there, who have been displaced from other parts of Gaza. This plan is obviously going to have perilous, disastrous humanitarian consequences for those Palestinians living there. It also poses a threat to Egypt, which has said that through unofficial channels that this would be seen as posing a grave risk to the Egyptian-Israeli peace treaty. And so obviously this is going to be a hugely inflammatory move that could further escalate regional tensions. We could see another round of regional tensions as a result of this, and obviously have, most importantly, disastrous humanitarian consequences for the 1.5 million Palestinians sheltering there.
Dr. Hassan, is Netanyahu liable of committing war crimes, especially with the latest offensive in Rafah? Because initially the defense forces had issued evacuation notices to Palestinians to move southwards, and now they're targeting the south. What's going on here?
Well, it's clear that there are not really any safe zones in the Gaza Strip any longer. We've seen Israel systematically target those areas that it had previously declared as being safe. And we've seen Palestinians being displaced over and over again in what seems to be a ceaseless campaign by the Israelis, really to go after Hamas, irrespective of the cost to Palestinian lives and irrespective of international humanitarian law. Now, I'm not the best placed person to comment on whether Israel is committing war crimes, but fortunately, we have an ICJ ruling with provisional measures that suggest that Israel may be plausibly committing genocide, contraventions of the Genocide Convention, We've seen allegations by human rights organizations that allege that Israel has committed many war crimes. And so there are UN bodies, there's the ICJ, there are human rights organizations that have found Israel to be very plausibly guilty of very serious violations of international law. And so as a non-expert in international law, I defer to those agencies for their judgments as to Israel's conduct.
All right, we'll deal with that. If the offensive does happen, where can the Palestinians who are stuck in the south go? Because Egypt will not let them in. And what about the Arab countries? Will they allow them in?
Well, Egypt has said from the very beginning that it will not accept the forced displacement of Palestinians living in Gaza over the border to Egypt. All of the Arab states have also supported the Egyptian position by saying that they are totally opposed to any forced displacement or relocation of the Palestinians. And so all of the Arab states are united against what is, in effect, an ongoing Nakba, as the Palestinians call it. And so I think the Egyptians obviously have national security concerns and would not necessarily want to see a massive influx of refugees coming into its borders. Now, the Israelis might be trying to force a situation in which it becomes inevitable, unavoidable, for a large number of Palestinians to pour into the Egyptian borders. This may be a side effect, a consequence of Israel rendering the rest of the Gaza Strip uninhabitable by destroying most of its homes, by destroying most of the healthcare infrastructure. The rest of the Gaza Strip is, to a very large extent, really uninhabitable. And so this leaves Palestinians with extremely limited choices. It really isn't clear where Palestinians sheltering in Rafah at the moment could go if Israel does proceed with its plans for a ground invasion. In reality, I don't think the fate of Palestinian civilians is very high on the agenda for Prime Minister Netanyahu. We've seen over or nearly 30,000 Palestinians killed so far, including 10,000 children, with over half of Gaza's population displaced, I think even up to 80%. And so I don't think that the question of where Palestinians are going to go or what ends up happening within the broader humanitarian context for people in Gaza is really a policy priority for the Netanyahu government at the moment.
All right, I've been talking to Dr. Hassan Al-Hassan, who is a senior fellow for Middle East Policy at the International Institute for Strategic Studies. Thank you very much, Dr. Hassan, for talking to us today.
Thank you for having me.
WION is now available in your country. Download the app now and get all the news on the move.